Hey, what's going on, bleeders? LazyBed here, and sitting here around the JBR round table with the boys. Got LazyBed myself, as I just mentioned. We got our boy Austin, as always, and we got our guy DangerMouse. And we're doing our little bit of a warm up before we get into this week's weekend roundup. So, guys, I got a couple of questions for you. We'll go ahead and get into them now. All right, fellas. So we'll begin with this first one here. This is probably the longest one of the day, a little bit long-winded. It has come to light that the UFC apparently has begun to grow sour on the idea of double champions. Now, earlier this week, Diego Lopez did an interview with ESPN and was quoted as saying, "The UFC were very clear to us. If you want to move up, you have to vacate your title. This is what the UFC has said to all the champions who are planning to move up a weight class. They will no longer have the status of double champions simultaneously." End quote. Now, after Saturday night's fights, Dana would further clarify, saying the promotion isn't against fighters trying to vie for multiple championships, but indicated he expects an elevated level of activity from those who choose to attempt the feat. He was quoted as saying, "Unless you think you can defend your title." Now, White told reporters this backstage at the Climate Pledge Arena. He also said, "If there is a guy who thinks he can do it and wants to defend both belts and has accomplished all these great things, I would have no problem with it, but you're going to be busy." So it sounds like Dana and the brass are going to expect any champion looking to claim two titles to be capable of defending both of those belts and frequently. So, true or false, guys, the UFC will no longer allow fighters to compete for two titles unless they're willing to defend in two divisions.
You want this first, Mouse?
I can go. I can go first if you like.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of happy with it, really. If you want to take two belts and defend them, yeah. If you as long as you're going to defend both at least once each year, I guess more likely it should be 6 fights over 2 years. So you have to defend one of them twice. Sorry, both of them. Yeah, both of them twice. It works out, doesn't it? My mind's being fried there. Thankfully, I'm in charge of editing this part, so I can easily pull out. Yeah, so no real argument. I think Ilya Taporia, I don't know whether he was forced into it by the UFC or whether Ilya has just set that stone rolling, buying, I'm done with that division, I'm moving up. It is what it is, which is a good move by Ilya. It's thrown him back into the thing. I don't know whether he's dodging anyone. I don't think he's scared of anyone at featherweight. He just wants a new challenge. And then we've had Islam, obviously, has come out and said he can fight me, but he's got to fight a real lightweight first. So I'm not getting labelled as beating another featherweight. And then what else? We have Islam wanted to move up, of course, against he whose name shall not be mentioned, who doesn't seem to want to fight him, and he wants to move up. Which DDP has been laughing at him pretty much, saying, "Come on up, you're a very tiny man against me," which I kind of think it is. And then there's obviously Poatan suggesting that he might move to heavyweight. I don't know how that one would go. That's probably the one that I would say you can move up and have a go at that one, and you don't have to give up your lightweight belt.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you happen to win the heavyweight belt, then you make your choice which one you're going to defend. Yeah, it seems sensible to me. I don't have any hate for it. I think the sport has been quite disrupted at times by all this discussion about I want to move up, I want to fight for this belt and that belt. So yeah. Good. Let's see some more fights. Stop holding up divisions with dreams and wishes.
Yeah, I think that's the key right there. Is really just the holding up the divisions. Like, I don't have anything against a guy who, wants to quote unquote dare to be great and try to go for a double champ status. But if that's going to effectively hold up, the entire division that he's temporarily leaving, in limbo, then that's what I don't like. I don't like how that has caused so many issues in recent years. And I agree with the take. I think that if you're going to move up and you're going to take that risk, then you need to be willing and able to keep things moving in the division that you're, uh, I guess trying to simultaneously be the head of. So yeah, I don't like the idea of fighters just moving up and having the shot and then losing and being like, well, I can go back down there because I'm still the champ there. I'm sick of seeing that. So, Austin, what do you think? Is this true or false? Do you think that the UFC is no longer going to allow fighters to compete for 2 titles unless they're willing to defend in 2 divisions?
I was going to say the exceptions to the rule are Connor and Amanda Nunes, right? I mean, DC didn't really sell a ton of pay-per-views, but the divisions he were in were not super stacked. Same with Amanda. She didn't really sell. Notoriously is not a high-value pay-per-view draw, but there's not a whole lot of people in our divisions. Connor was only allowed to because he was riding such a high win, and it nearly killed the momentum of both divisions. Never defended the titles, and constantly was demanding more or going off and not fighting anybody, right? So the UFC's, I think, play on this is we cannot have another Connor. Ilya thinks, because Ilya even said, like, well, before this all started happening, he was mentioning that he was going to not drop his belt and move up to lightweight and hold on to the belt. And they're like, dude, we cannot have this happen again. We cannot have interim titles on a regular basis because it, A, signals that your champion just doesn't defend. And then B, on top of it, you're looking at, do they sell pay-per-views? That's the exception to the rule, right? Or there's nobody that's, gonna, you don't have to fight like multiple times a year to defend your belt because the division isn't super stacked. So there's currently not a giant superstar other than possibly Poton and maybe John Jones. I mean, we don't know what the numbers are half the time, and I'm being told constantly that Ilya is a big draw. I mean, all right, well then let's see what his pay-per-view numbers are. If he was, I don't know, because that's their whole thinking on it. Possibly they're like, yeah, let's rein this in a little bit. Nobody needs to be constantly holding up titles and divisions because they want to move up and risk nothing and come back to their division to defend it. So it's a good call. About damn time. I'm tired of that shit. I think the fan base is too. So UFC's like, all right, well, if nobody wants it, then we're probably not going to do it as much. That,
Yeah.
even
It's like
Dana
the
has his day sometimes.
It's like when we had all the rematches constantly. Yeah, if you defended your title 3 times, yeah, you can have a rematch. Otherwise, forget it. Just come back another time. And same with this, maybe. If you defended your title 3 times and you want to go for weight category, then yeah, that's one of the few ones I don't mind. But yeah, even better if you're going to abandon your belt in the lower weight category, because no one goes down, do they? Let's be honest here.
Yeah, it's almost always a guy going up.
Poletan could prove the exception to that rule by going back down and challenging DDP, I suppose.
That would be a foolish move, though.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that it just seems like the sound and logical decision for all the points that we've all made here. It's just you can't keep having these situations occur where you have to bring these interim titles into the fold because it diminishes the value of the actual title and of the championship itself. So yeah, if you want to fucking move up and you want to go for a shot at a second title, you're either dropping the belt you have currently, or you better agree that I'm going to turn around and defend my lower weight class division title, within X amount of time. Like you have a window that you have to turn around within, or else you can't retain your belt. So
Yeah,
we'll see how that goes.
You'd have to go PFL tournament style. This is your fights for the next year.
Yep, exactly. Yeah,
And
your shit would
if you're
be laid out.
injured, you either fight or you give up your belt. Your choice. We don't care.
Yeah, I like that. All right, guys. Let's move it along to the second topic of the day. The next quick hitter question for the pre-show bants. Saturday evening, we returned to Seattle, Washington for the first time in nearly a dozen years. Now, the crowd was raucous, the fights were mostly fireworks, and even Dana said he'd forgotten just how badass Seattle is. Now that it's over, what is one long neglected city that you would like to see the UFC return to or visit for the first time?
Interesting. I think a place that, because you remember those times where they would go to like those small, like, random towns, Smallville places, I fucking think they went to North Dakota at one point, and it was like a small little like 3,000 person arena or some shit like that. Like, Dodgy Palace would be fun. I don't know. I just just make it random. Just get us out of the Apex if you want to. Like, I mean, I know they're probably looking for site fees more than anything else, but I'm pretty sure there's a couple of places that'd be willing to pay. Maybe not a ton, but enough to at least break even on the cost. So the place I think that'd be fun would be fuck, what is it? I was gonna say somewhere like Austin, maybe. But no, I think they went there not too long ago. But if not Austin, then go to San Diego. Fuck it. Give Dominic Cruz a crowd send off, right? He's got a
Yeah,
UFC gym out there. Why
those
not?
are two pretty good shouts. Yeah, I don't mind either of those. Hadn't thought of neither one of them either.
Yeah, this was. I don't really know because I've never been to a UFC fight, and I'm not that interested, especially not given the cost of a UFC fight. So I suppose if someone was saying this is the show you can have, and we'll give you tickets to it as well, yeah. Well, obviously I'm going to pick Sheffield. Why the bloody hell wouldn't I? To push, I guess we could go up to Leeds because they've probably got somewhere slightly bigger and better than exists in Sheffield. But yeah, just for hometownness, Sheffield. They could do a stadium fight here if they want to take a risk on the weather. There's 2 football stadiums. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't really give a bigger answer because I've not really had the desire to go to a fight.
No, that's fair.
Maybe if PFL goes to Manchester and the tickets aren't excessively expensive, I might trot over there and get to see Dakota live. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I do. I think that a hometown card is obviously the main choice that people would make, and I'm not going to stray far away from that because I'm going to say bring it back to Cleveland, baby. I mean, they haven't been here since when Stipe was the champion, when he defended in Cleveland, and that was a hell of a fucking show. That crowd was going nuts. It's still one of the better road shows outside of their main run that they make every year of locations that they visit. But to put aside my homerism, even though I would love to see them come back to Cleveland, I think it would make a lot of sense, especially right now, to strike while the iron's hot and bring the UFC back to Chicago. Only makes sense. I asked this exact question on one of the MMA fighting shows a couple of days ago, and I think it was Mike Heck or maybe Jed that mentioned Chicago, and they were already on my mind because A, you haven't been there in several years. B, it's a huge fucking market, guaranteed to sell out. It's been long neglected. And C, you have 2 active champions right now that either are from there or train out of Chicago. You got Bilal Muhammad and you got Juliana Pena. So while those may not be the 2 biggest fan favorite names, it's 2 champions that you could slap on a card and have a reason to go back to the Windy City. So I say head back to Super Dave's neck of the woods and bring the UFC to Chicago.
No, not bad.
They go crazy for fucking sporting events. They love it.
Yeah. So did Seattle, by the looks of it.
Yeah, they were off the fucking hook. All right, guys. Well, that leaves us with only the final question of the day. Question numero tres. Gentlemen, outside of the women, the Fighting Nerds gym is absolutely white hot right now. Now, we've seen this before in MMA, but far too often, this type of wild success from a camp is a flash in the pan. Now, is whatever formula these nerds are using sustainable? Will this run they're on continue for a while? Or do you see it as more of a moment of success? What do you guys think?
Wow. I'd say more down to the, how can I express this? Looking back, we had Trevor Whitman, who obviously had Rose, he had Usman, he had Gaethje, who didn't win the title but was up there in that division. Looked like the most amazing coach forever, and then within a year or 2 years, a year and a half maybe, he's kind of disappeared somewhat into the background. We've had Nick Sick up there last year, our coach of the year, with his training of Francis Ngannou, and Strickland getting the belt, which he's now lost. Or rather failed to get back. So yeah, there's definitely some things where you'll just see a team or a coach push people forwards, and they seem to get that moment. So the trick is, it's how many fighters in that gym can hold on to that moment, rather I think than the gym itself. It's so intent on the fighters. I'm struggling to express what I want to say. Yeah, they will have their moment in the sun. They are having it right now. How long can it last? I don't know. I've never. Maybe someone like Austin can tell me a gym that's gone on at the ultimately high level, because I know there's obviously gyms that have been around for a long time. American Top Team, Alpha Male, all these big teams, and they obviously are constantly around. But even they just seem to have their moments where they'll have some really great fighters, and then they disappear into the background, and then they'll come back out again. So yeah, I'm kind of losing track of where I was going now. Yeah, I think it's going to happen, which is happening, and it will happen for a length of time. But I can't predict how long it's going to last, because it just depends how long those fighters keep winning. And the stronger they are together, the stronger that gym will do. But maybe when one or two of them starts to lose, we'll start to see the gym slide away. Perhaps we've seen that in Dagestan now with Khabib's gym. They've had a couple of losers, obviously, in the last month or so.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hold on.
I'm not saying that is the case, Austin. I'm just throwing it out there, because it happens everywhere. If you want a gym that's looking great at the moment, which I'm going to briefly touch on in the main show, is Andy Aspinall's gym, where we've just had Modestus Big-Houses look fantastic. Got Tom Aspinall, the real heavyweight champion. You've got Mick Parkin, who's fighting his way through the heavyweight ranks, and we've got all these big guys training at that gym. So maybe that's the gym for next year, or even this year.
Yeah, I think that, you bring up some really good points there, and I think it really is kind of a fluid situation, and it's very much there's a lot of moving parts, and it's what's the phrase? It's a sum of the whole, more or less. It's they have a lot of really good guys, a lot of talented guys, a lot of guys that happen to be highly motivated right now and doing well and on winning streaks. But they also seem to have a very specific way of coaching, a way of game planning, a way of preparing for fights. They seem to be just really dialed in whatever their, I guess, for lack of a better word, the word I already used, formula. They have a very strong formula. So it's kind of it's a two-part thing. It's the people involved, and it's also the gym itself. But so it's kind of hard to predict. But Austin, what do you think? Do you think that, is this run that these fighting nerds are on, is this just something where they're capitalizing on the momentum of the moment, or is this really something that they can kind of continue to produce going forward?
Well, I mean, if it's any proof in the pudding, I mean, if you look at what Silva is doing in the featherweight division, as long as he keeps his weight, man, looks like he's 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 a literal step above everybody else in that division. Now he hasn't faced anybody in the top 15, but still, I mean, hell, he handled a lightweight that was
Yep.
much bigger than him, and he made him look fucking silly. And then there's a context of the team itself is on the verge of being contenders. Carlo Baralio is probably the closest one. And then on top of it, they've just had a lot of success because they seem to be a cohesive unit that is rising above where the other contenders sit, which is great. And you want that. You want new gyms to kind of enter the scene and be in the spotlight more or less, or become a new thing for, MMA to be like, hey, maybe they're doing something right, right? Because the worst thing you could do is be in an echo chamber where we all agree and we all do the same thing. You want people who are different. You want people who are going to give you different looks, who think differently about how they train and how they work as a unit. That I think they're going to be successful. I think they're going to continue to be successful. That the question is when one contender faces a title, does that mark the end of their run? I don't know. I mean, Kyle Balio is probably the closest to that. You have other guys in other divisions. Carlos Prates is right there as well. They're all there. I think it's just a matter of, can they win after a title fight, regardless if they win the title or lose the title, lose the title fight. Can they continue to win after that? That's the question. And I think they can, but we got to get there first. So I think they're going to be successful. And as far as the other things where it's like you got guys like AKA, long history, Ray Longo's gym, individuals, but they've been consistent with how they run things. ATT is always there. Formerly Black Zillions, Henry Hoop's group, more or less, that has been a decent group. Coaching comes in waves. You can't have guys fight and be continuous winners all the time. The idea is, if you can take somebody and make them good enough to be consistent at the top of the divisions that they're in, that's good enough. Yeah, you would like champions. Everyone would like champions. I mean, fuck, that probably helps with your paycheck, right? But no, you just need guys to fight and look good, do good, for the gym, because that makes you look good as a coach. So I think they're good right now. I think they'll be good. But, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that you brought up a really good point there of when they reach that peak and that pinnacle of a championship title fight, regardless of the result, how will you fare as a gym following that? Because that is the deciding factor for a lot of these gyms that we would point to as camps that were once on top and weren't able to maintain that success. Because when you reach that pinnacle, win or lose, you have to be able to maintain that recipe and that secret sauce moving forward. Otherwise, you're going to fall by the wayside, because this game moves too fast, it evolves too quick. And that's where I think it's really going to come to their benefit, that they are all truly nerds and they approach this game a little bit differently than the other camps. This is the antithesis of an alpha male situation. This is a bunch of guys coming together, putting their heads together, and figuring this game out in a way that hasn't really been seen before. So I think we're going to see a lot of success from this camp going forward.
That's right. I'm just laughing at Austin's comment there in the live chat. Going on to fighters, talking about reaching the top of the mountain. Obviously, if you want someone who's done that, then it's Khabib. He reached the top of the mountain, and like an eagle, he flew away, which is the smartest move ever in mixed martial arts, arguably. Just to bring it back to that one. What else? I was going to say something else there. I'm distracted myself, or maybe Austin's funny comment has. Yeah, you can only stay at the top of the mountain for so long, and you've just got to get away from it at some point. And yeah, I thought Austin made a great summary of this one.
Yep. And AKA is a really good example of a gym that has found, as a smaller gym relatively, that found success with a certain formula that continues to work to this day. With the Khabibs and with the Islams and.
Yeah. That's what. Just very quickly, that's what popped into my head while you're talking about them all being nerds. What you kind of seen is the switch over that you had from in poker, where you had all the old guys who sat at the table and played 100,000 hands in a smoky back room somewhere, and then in come the early 2000s, like 2006 onwards, I guess people started using math, and now you've got solvers in poker. So I guess fighting nerds are just doing that in a much more physical sport, obviously. But yeah, same 100%. Thing. New approach.
Well, all right, guys. I think that's just going to all right, guys. I think that is going to just about do it for this pre-show banter. We appreciate everybody tuning in and listening as always, and make sure you stay tuned to JBR for the weekend roundup every Monday morning right before MK. So we'll see you guys. Peace. Yeah.